everybody. I'm getting ready to have Nikki on. We're about ready to start. We're going to have a little pre-game conversation with Nikki. She's joining me in a minute or two, and we're getting ready for our 7 o'clock live. Here she comes, Nikki Glantz from Milestones. And she is a little trouble figuring this out, but we have figured it out.
Here I am.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Woohoo!
Woo!
Yay! We did it.
We did it. Yes.
What? That's a great background you've got there. I like
Oh,
that. You got your love thing going back.
Thank you.
On back there.
Yeah. The lovely thing is I'm in my son's room and I had to put a poster up because otherwise it's Saturdays are for the boys. So I had to change that for this discussion. I just felt it was better, more appropriate.
Well, love is a good topic for us today.
Absolutely. People do.
We need more of that.
We do. And that is what we will discuss tonight when we have more people on. Now, that one person that it's showing, is that me that's on with you? Like, or is that?
Yes.
Okay, so it's you and me, kid.
Yes. So you and me, kid.
Okay.
So, but now this will be we're being videotaped. So
yes.
We're
live. I'm here.
Yeah. So I'll do your official introduction at 7, but we can talk. I actually was thinking maybe, well, I think when we first talk about you, we should talk about Milestones too, but I didn't know if maybe, since a lot of viewers will come on later, and watch the whole thing, maybe we can do a little chit chat about Milestones. Sure. Just to give you like a little commercial.
It'd be great. Yes, I would love to talk about it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that? Because a lot of people who are here might not have ever heard about Milestones.
Sure.
And I think they should all know about it.
Absolutely. My pleasure to talk about it. So certainly. So Milestones, it's a treatment center located in, it's Cooper City, Florida, but we like to say Fort Lauderdale because people don't know Cooper City, but it's 10 minutes from Fort Lauderdale. And we have been around for over 20 years. And I've actually been the nutritionist there for over 20 years. I have recently become the chief operating officer.
Since you were 2, right?
Right. Since I was 2.
Right.
Thank you for knowing the years and doing the math for everyone. Yes, since I was 2. Yes, so we have been treating people that are struggling and suffering with eating disorders for over 20 years. We treat everyone from compulsive overeaters to those with anorexia. We have a high level of care, residential level of care, PHP, IOP. We've now, even during the pandemic, we've extended to telehealth, so we've offered that as well. We have psychiatrists and doctors and therapists, and basically it's a lot of groups. You get individual sessions, and you come in because your life's unmanageable. You come in because it's not working, and we work with you, and obviously the nutritionist myself, and you get a customized food plan, and we work to get you back out there and living life again, because unfortunately food and the addiction to food and all that comes with it has taken over your life. And kind of our motto is, it's a weird statement to say, but we're working on discharge on the first day, which the idea is we want you to be able to get back out there and live life. It's not about just staying in treatment. It's about, we give you the tools, we work on it, and then we want to get you back out there. So it's really from a place of, we don't want you down longer than you need to be. And we know you've been struggling for that long, that this isn't, let's do this and let's get you back out there. But it is pretty intense, but it is, I will say, we have a great following. We have a huge alumni, and, word of mouth is basically everything. And we've been very grateful, and we do hard work, and so do the clients, staff and clients. We do a lot of hard work, and thankfully it shows, people, the word out is that it works. So we let it speak for itself. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then, and people like you who, give referrals to us or know our work and known our work for years, also send us clients. So it's really, it's nice because both with other clinicians and other patients, word of mouth of meetings, we end up getting a nice draw of people that come in for what they need the help with, which is eating disorder help. So yeah. Yeah.
Right. You have to forgive my door opening and closing. When I have 2 dogs, they like to come in.
No problem. And I will tell you that I have them watching our dog, because as soon as he hears a door close, he's like, wait, what's going on? And then he wants to leave. So if I keep, yes. So yes. No
Right. Well,
problem.
I've got one in here. He's eating a bone, but he he tends to like to go in and out. So we'll see how that goes. But yes, I really love Milestones, and it makes me so happy that you're there, because so many of my clients have come through, and there's just, with the model that we use for helping people, it's just, there's not really, it's the best in the country,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, in terms of helping people get the kind of care that they need to get, most of the eating disorders places, they are pushing junk food on people, and they really believe that you should be eating sugar and refined carbohydrates as a part of recovery. And I think that that mentality sort of came from more of an anorexia treatment, where people are restricting and afraid of food, but when people are binging and they're really food addicted, to be forced to eat moderate amounts of sweets. I mean, you're the only place around that well, I think there may be a couple of other places, but you're my top place. I mean, that you're just doing such a great job of really giving people really healthy, good start, for getting really getting the physical, you doing the food, but then also the emotional help that people get, where they really get to the bottom of their issues and start really working on recovery in all areas.
Yeah.
It's just,
I appreciate that, Rhona. And I'll tell you something, it's funny that we're on this together and talking about this, and I forgot to mention the kind of the most important thing. So let's talk about that for a second, which is, right, we do the no sugar, no flour thing. We treat eating disorders from an addiction model. And that is we didn't even set out to have being such a niche. We didn't try to do that. It's just, we knew from science where that was going, and believed in it before it was backed completely. Now it's, you can't fight what science has now told us. And by the grace of God, we've been doing this for so long that we've been in it and invested in it. But to your point, no sugar, no flour, which is really understanding that we treat those substances like poison. That those are the things that are the addictive substances that make it too hard for us to be like, I'll just have a little. Like you said, some other treatment centers, and listen, to each his own, but they try to have you learn how to eat a brownie, or eat to this, eat to that. And it's like, yeah, like when you say a serving of a brownie, is it the tray you're talking about? Because you keep indicating, one, and that seems like crazy talk. So for all of that, yes, we absolutely treat it from that modality, and most unfortunately other treatment centers don't. So we really have, we've been there doing it like that for the whole time, and we can say that it works. So we're very proud of that. So I'm glad you brought that most important piece up. So thank you.
Well, it is so important. And there are people who need to be able to, I guess the other types of treatment works for people who need that.
Yes.
But,
yes.
And so but I think when like I've had people come to see me who have been in and out of treatment centers 10 different times. And no one ever said to them, you should consider getting off sugar.
Right.
That and they're bulimic, and they're binging on enormous amounts of sugar, and no one ever, even knowing the science, no one ever would say to them, you should get off the sugar.
Right.
And so sometimes it's just it's like revolutionary, like, well,
right. Yes.
It's amazing how getting off the foods that trigger the addictive process can, for the right people, that's exactly what they need.
Yes.
So
well, thank you. And
anyway, so I think
we've been on the same page with that for years, so thank you for that. I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, so it's 7:02, and
wow.
we should I'm going to introduce you.
Okay.
And even though we introduced Milestones,
right,
but so now we'll introduce Nikki, although I hope I can do a good job of introducing you. So this is Nikki Glantz, and I'm Dr. Rhona, and we are here live on Facebook to talk about food planning. And Nikki, we've been talking about Milestones. For anybody who's just tuning in, we were talking about Milestones in Cooper City, Florida, which is right near Fort Lauderdale. In case anybody needs treatment, this is a great time of year to go to Florida.
It is.
It's warm there. They don't have snowstorms
Right.
like
No,
we
we
do.
do not. We do not. We have sunshine. I know it is crazy. I feel bad for everyone else. When I look at the news in the morning, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, everyone. Yes. But yes, this is, if nothing else, a good time for treatment. Yes. But yes, so
Right.
thank
And
you.
so,
Yeah.
well, only because it's
Oh,
warm. No.
right. Not just treatment is right. I was only saying that because of the timing, the winter thing,
Right.
Yeah.
So, but Nikki actually is the
Uh-huh.
dietitian, nutritionist, right? You go by either,
Either.
is that right?
Yeah. It all works.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're a registered dietitian,
Yes.
and Nikki was just telling us that she's been at Milestones for over 20
Uh-huh.
years, and she's the one who does all the food planning for all the
Uh-huh.
clients, and everyone loves Nikki. So I have only heard only all great things about you, Nikki. And so that's why I thought it'd be great to bring you into the group and give people a chance to hear you talk about food planning and how to manage food in recovery. And everyone here in this group is struggling with overeating. And I'm sure we have the whole gamut of people here struggling with some will or just have, overeating and just want to be a little better. Some have real serious problems
Uh-huh.
and maybe need milestones,
Right.
and some are bulimic, and so most are having some sort of battle. So hearing from you, you're such an important part. I mean, I'm the psychologist, and I get more into the issues of the heart and the mind, but the food is an important part.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having you here as a professional voice speaking into that issue, it would be very helpful to the group. So thank you so much for
My pleasure
coming and
for being
joining.
here. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So we didn't get a lot of questions, although I do have my dear Marissa is on board, keeping an eye. And if anyone has questions, we want to hear from you, and hopefully we'll get the questions texted to us, and we'll be able to answer them. But so Nikki and I we're gonna get going. Nikki is mainly gonna be doing the talking tonight. But so we were gonna start with talking about what's the best way. I know people maybe here are some people already have food plans. Some have already been in recovery. Maybe some are just starting and really have no idea how to start, what to do about food at all.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wouldn't mind maybe just giving us an overview of how you think about a person who is trying to get going in their recovery, they're struggling, they need a food plan. How will we do that? How do we do that?
Sure. So, when I think of it from that point of view, like you're here, you're watching this video, whether you're watching live or afterwards, and you are here because there's a struggle with food, and there's a struggle with, in particular, if you look at it, it typically goes back to sugar, flour, and foods around that are associated with that. So I would say the first thing to look at is the sugar intake. If you heard one thing off of this, if I said to you, okay, so let's watch the sugar intake. Let's not have foods that have sugar in it. For some of us, the thought is, okay, I don't like to get into specifics, but let's just say candy and things that are sugar laden that are obvious. The other thing that I have people look at is labels. So if I'm just trying to figure out what's considered healthy and hearty, what's not. When you look at a label, I like to say get past all the nutrition as far as, believe it or not, the calories, protein, and carbs. That's not as important as the actual ingredients. So the first thing I would look for is ingredients, and I would look at the first 4 ingredients of anything you're going to put in your mouth, be it drinking or eating. And if you check, you'll see the word, if you see the word sugar in the first 4 ingredients, we want to not have that food. You might be surprised. Like I said, some of them, like candies and things that are sugar laden that we think are the obvious ones, those are easy to identify. But when you're really looking at a label, sometimes sauces and dressings and things that you've been like, oh, I'm having a salad, but I'm putting this dressing on. And not even from a fat point of view, just a sugar point of view, you're like, oh, the second ingredient is sugar. If you were to like truly pour out sugar and be like, okay, let me pour that on my salad, you wouldn't think to do that. But when you're pouring that on everything and you're like, I don't know what's wrong, I feel compulsive after my salad, one of the indicators to me is I want more. The cravings come harder. So the first thing I would do is look at the sugar intake and really take a look at that. So saying no sugar. I would also say, there's this classic statement, shop, at a food store, shop the outer lanes, and not go on the in between. So, I've had people challenge me on that, like, well, yeah, but even sometimes they put produce in the middle. I'm like, I'm not talking about that. Like, I'm talking about really, not getting into anything that's processed or boxed and things. And that's, this is my indication of lanes, going in at the lanes at the supermarket. I'm
Mm-hmm.
also a big believer in, if you're really coming to this and you're like, what do I do? Okay, so I've looked at the sugar, I've checked my label. Now, how often are you eating? So if you don't already have a food plan, something basic is, all right, well, let me just say two things. If you really were just coming to this and you're like, I need something, I would say, let's work on, what if I was not compulsive around food? What does that look like? I'm not eating standing up. I'm not eating fast at a speed that's not healthy. I sit down, I make a plate. I've checked my ingredients. The foods that I'm eating are hearty and healthy. I sit down, I have that meal, I eat slow, I put my fork down. That would be tough enough for anyone, most often, that's eating compulsive. That's really tough. Then the step further would be a food plan, which maybe, in my opinion, would have at minimal 4 meals. And whether they're labeled breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack, whatever you want to call them, but it's 4 meals. So it's, a breakfast that's hearty and healthy, a lunch, a dinner, and then I call it this floating snack. And the floating snack is that if there's going to be more than 5 to 6 hours between any of the 2 meals, you put it there. So if it's between breakfast and lunch, if lunch is going to be too long, then we put it there. If between lunch and dinner, we put it there. So basically you have 4 meals that you're eating in the day. All the meals have some sort of protein in them. Again, no sugar laden foods. And we start with that. And then we get more specific. But that would be my, if you were just jumping on this and you read or you watched this, that would be, go and do that. Because again, not easy, but doable. And you will see the difference. The compulsion goes down. There's a breath that comes. There's a, my goal is always for my clients is freedom. This is taken over our lives and taken from us everything. We've been at parties, pre-pandemic, but we've been to these situations, dinners out, parties, so forth. And we're thinking about the food and how these people need to leave the house so I can eat this food up, or are they finishing? And we rarely focus on, oh, there's Dr. Rhona. How about a conversation with her? It's, I gotta go eat this. So just to be able not to be compulsive around the food would be a gift and a freedom that I would want everyone to have. So that's my short answer to what would you do if someone was coming to this. So those would be my first, go-tos if someone was coming to this and watching this. So yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's great, Nikki. That's great. And so, I love that, so eating like regular meals and having like 4 meals and making sure that, and you use the words hearty and healthy.
Yes.
And I like that. And I wanted to kind of hone in a little bit on the hearty part.
Yes.
Because I was wondering what you think about, like, a lot of people who are here and listening, used to the whole like dieting, and you and I were, while we were preparing, we were talking about jumpstart dieting and how people do, like, when they get upset with their weight, they will start doing some sort of restriction to get their weight under control. They could have been overweight for years, but then all of a sudden it's like, I have to hurry up and lose the weight.
Yes.
And so then my mentality is to do some kind of dramatic weight loss thing, like keto or
paleo or intermittent. Right. Absolutely.
That's the latest ones, but God knows we've
heard them all. Yes.
Right. And so then that sort of mentality of sort of eating little, like I have a client doing now, like one of these medical weight losses, like 500 calories or 800 calories. Just really like meals, and then being kind of stuck into this idea that if I eat hearty, and then I'm going to get that I won't lose weight fast enough.
Right. Well, it's great question, and it speaks to the whole part of this addiction thing that, even just for a second talking about exercise. If I talk about exercise, someone who hasn't exercised in a while, and then I mention exercise and I say, okay, how about a 10-15 minute walk? They're like, well, that's going to do nothing. I'm like, okay, well, what are you doing now? And it's like, well, nothing. And it's that mentality, it's all or nothing, which is what we do. This is how that mind thinks, that addictive mind. It's all or nothing. So I'm going to exercise, it has to be this long and this hard. So it's the same thing with food. What happens is we're very attracted to the more extreme. So the intermittent fasting, the extreme side of whatever it is. And it's not like those don't work out there, but when you realize that you're not a normie when it comes to food, it would have worked already. Like my belief is, how'd that work for you? And that's my question. If someone brings it to me, like, I think it looks nice on paper and it looks nice in theory, but in truth, no, it doesn't work. It just kicks up what I consider the addictive process that's going on in here. I also feel like, I always say this, that it's like a book that has a different cover. So this one's sparkly and pretty, and this one it's all black with sharp colors. This one's white. This is whatever. It's all these different covers. So when you open it up, inevitably it's the same story every time. But somehow that eating disordered thinking has this thing like, no, this is different. This is intermittent fasting. No, this is different. And don't get me wrong, I'm a human. I get it. I read and hear and see and do. And I maybe also because of my profession, true that I can speak to for 20 plus years, I haven't had someone yet, besides honestly the food plan that we do, this kind of really understand that whole addictive process, really follow a plan and then lose the weight and keep it off. They could get maybe 5 days, 10 days. I'm not saying that. It's that we forget about what that jump start looks like. Oh, it's a jump start. No, we're those people. We jump in, we're hardcore for 3-5 days, hardcore. We don't have the other side. That's the whole thing. But the book tells us in our brain, this book's like, oh, but this is different. I can do this one. And it's the same book. So my take is, if we just the very idea that we're attracted to the extreme lets you know once again, like, wait, I'm way too attracted to that. Like, it's almost like, right, I'm fighting what you're telling me because that seems too like, that's not going to work. That's going to take too long. This is the idea to me of it being so extreme is what we have to look out for. Like, we're attracted, like you have to know already, knowing yourself, like, wow, if I'm attracted to it, I really need to take a look at that, because I get attracted to extreme sides of things and they don't work. Unfortunately, I wish to tell a different story. I don't make any money different either way. Forget milestones. It's not going to matter what plan you follow. I just want someone to be able to get through this. And I just know, unfortunately, in the end, it doesn't work and you're back to square one.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just a vicious cycle. And then the problem with the dieting. Sorry, Charlie's. The problem with the dieting too is that it's never treating an addiction, and I think that's where people get into, like, we're treating a weight problem, and I think that's a lot of the mentality is that, really what we don't understand is that if you keep at it like it's a weight problem, and then we're only really treating the outward manifestation of the problem when we try to target the weight. And that, of course, that's the part we're upset about. We want the weight to go away, but we're not treating the addictive eating when we aim in that direction. And so, of course, if you can come up with a quick way of losing weight, people, I have a wedding, it's the summer, it's, whatever the excuses for du jour,
right.
For why you have to do the quick weight loss thing this time. But in every situation, there's never the treatment of the disordered eating.
Right.
And, so I think that's really the difference between what you're talking about, where you commit to a routine of eating healthy and hearty and slow, and just learning to change the way you eat forever as a routine, as opposed to doing something temporarily to quickly drop the weight and hoping that somehow it will be like different this time. And now I'll follow like you said, the shiny, glitzy.
Right. This is right. This is going to be different because on the outside it does look different. That's the
right. Well, they fool you
every time.
Like, somehow you're going to be different this time. Like, you'll do the maintenance program this time. And, as if somehow you're going to magically be different, but that never happens. It never happens.
Yeah. Actually, when you were saying that, one thing that pops in my head also a lot of time is when you're really weight focused, you're not recovery focused. And recovery can look very different for a lot of people. But the idea is, if it's just weight focused, then you're still in your eating disorder. So I find it's disordered eating disordered behaviors. When it's weight focused, that's what you're focused on, is the weight. And it's really, as crazy as this is, so let me finish my sentence. As crazy as it is, yes, there's a part that is weight focused, and if recovery is not the main one and the weight focus is the main one, then you will be in your eating disorder. It can be part of your recovery plan that includes a food plan that you follow and that kind of, those things. But if it's this way and its weight is the focus, we're out. It will not work. It becomes either I'm weighing myself, I'm weighing my self-worth, I'm weighing, all the things around weight. It then changes. Every food choice you make is based on what would be the leanest. So absolutely. And that's a good way to gauge what am I favoring at that time? So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
So, hey, listen, I've got a whole bunch of questions coming
Oh,
in for you.
sure, sure.
Are you ready? I got they're flying
Okay,
in.
hit me with them.
So we've got, even though we can't see the people, we know they're there,
Right.
because, and so we're so glad you're here. Who
Yes, and
we wish we could see you.
yeah, thank you for joining us.
So
Yes.
yes, it's so nice. And so here I have a whole bunch for you.
Sure.
So okay, so one person's asking, what are appropriate grains, and how many per day would you recommend?
Okay, so grains that I usually recommend, shockingly when I say this, people flip out, but it's potatoes and sweet potatoes, spaghetti
Mhm.
squash, quinoa, brown rice. Basically, my hope is it's not in a box. It came from the ground, it came from a tree, a bush, but not from a box. So those, so potatoes, sweet potatoes, spaghetti squash, pumpkin, um, I'm just trying to go down the list. Corn, peas, beans. So a lot of those are all used as carbs. And I usually say at lunch or, whatever, how you're doing meal 2 and meal 3. So at least 2 servings of carbs, possibly 3, depending how, even breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And usually a 3 to 4 ounce serving, depending what the deal is. So I might have more protein on there, 5 or 6 ounces, and 3 ounces of carb. I might have 4 ounces of carb. Maybe a half cup is a nice way to say it for this kind of engagement, where I think for sure 4 ounces or a half cup would be great. The only thing with cups, if I just to add in, is, a good compulsive eater, if you give me a half cup, I'm gonna shove the half cup. We call that fluffer stuff. You're either stuffing that in. That's the tightest half cup of rice you've ever seen in your entire life. It's like,
Oh yeah.
award worthy. Like, you want to see a half cup rice? I'll show you a half cup rice. Or you weigh out the 4 to 5 ounces. So that would be a little different gauge on that. But those would be the carbs. And usually, it kind of, for me, it depends on how someone does. Like if they say to me, once they have carbs in the morning, they're not as great. So they do more of a protein-based breakfast. Maybe there's still also fruit. But that, I normally would say, very loosely, I would say for sure there's carb at lunch and dinner, and most often at breakfast as well. I would say that would be my answer to that. So yeah.
Okay, so somebody asked, is spaghetti squash not a vegetable?
So this, right, the jury's still out. I mean, the way I see it, so I think you could ask a few nutritionists and they might see it differently. The way I treat it, spaghetti squash is a carb, but I double it. So if you need, let's say you needed 4 ounces of carb, I actually would have you double and do 8 ounces. So we
Okay.
treat it as, we treat it as a carb, not as a vegetable. And I do actually all the winter squash like that. So spaghetti, delicata, Hubbard, acorn, butternut, all those squash, not the, zucchini, the yellow and the green zucchini, that those are vegetables, but spaghetti squash, acorn, butternut, Hubbard, pumpkin, all those winter squash are carbs.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. We got a lot of questions still coming
Throw
in.
it.
There's another one asking, do you recommend quitting sugar and flour cold turkey?
Okay, so it's a great question.
Yes.
I would say I would start with sugar. And it also depends where you're coming from. But so if you come to my office, I'm going to say, yes, let's start with sugar and let's do it. Because I will say with something like an addictive substance, that teetering down is too tough. And I also do believe food in general, it's one of the only substances that even though we're putting it down over here and putting it down over here, meaning these addictive parts of it, we still have to eat every day. So I feel like you can draw that line very clean and say, okay, I'm not having sugar, but I'm still eating. You're still feeling full. You're still feeling satiated. Because I don't like anyone to be hungry on a food plan. That to me is vital. Like this isn't diet starvation mentality at all. That's when I say hearty and healthy, I'm serious. Like that, you need to be satiated and full. So, but yes, I would say, yes, I would go, you want to call it cold turkey? Yes, that I feel like then let's go no sugar. And typically for people going sugar, one of them is harder than the other. So if you need to, you could do one at a time. But I do believe one's going to be harder, and I would do that one first and get her done. So that would be my suggestion.
Right. And so, and the point is that if you think of it like, if it's an addiction, I mean, you wouldn't tell a cocaine addict to have a little cocaine.
Well, that's I really actually say those exact words. I use heroin and cocaine. You wouldn't have a little cocaine with lunch. You wouldn't do that. It's actually the line I absolutely, so I agree with you. And yes, that's why, because otherwise I'd say, listen, let's do it slowly. Let's break it down. And that's what's scary. Anyone who's writing that question, I appreciate that, because you represent a lot of people just by that one question, because it is scary. It's not easy to do, you know, and just the very essence of writing the questions, like I'm scared to even think of that to do a cold turkey. And listen, I've even said, go ahead and try it and do it slowly. You'll see. I mean, the truth is in the end, it's going to be like, you know what, I just need to stop it. And then it's clean. Yeah. Get it out of the house. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it feeds the addiction and every time we have it,
It
like
goes
they
back.
always say, one bite is too many, 1,000 isn't enough. So once you have it, you want your taste buds and your pleasure centers are
kicked
off
up to the high level, right? And the want is more the next time. Absolutely. Yes.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry for my door.
At this point, we welcome it. We understand that. That's all.
I have 2 puppies. Each one. They take turns coming in and out. Okay. So this is great, Nikki. Thank you so much. So there's more. We have more. This is a really good one. What about nuts and nut butter? And I know that's a really good one because I know for some people, nut butter and nuts are not a problem, and for other people, it seems like it can be really hard to manage. So how do you manage that with people?
Right, another good question. So okay, nuts and nut butter. So first and foremost, nuts for me, they are on the food plan, like where I work in Milestones. I allow nuts on the food plan if you can handle them. And that does mean that you can have them in the portion that we're asking you to have and in the amounts, you know, at each meal if that's what you wanted. However, they need to be raw and unsalted. And if you even have an inkling of a problem, like 1 ounce over, this over, a cup over, like it's a no. You don't have to find out through 3 overs that it's a problem. It's a problem. I will say in general, nuts and nut butters are on the very high list of incidence of issues. So nut butter is not something I really do as far as the food plan goes. I just think it's too easy. I think the nuts can sometimes be a helpful food, but I will say, like I said, more often they're on the list of, if I took a survey, do you have a problem with these foods? Nuts would be on there. So that comes with just caution. And I very individualize that. Like if someone has been doing nuts for years and that isn't their issue, God bless, I would say then keep going. But I wouldn't necessarily say to someone, let's do that. You know, let's get going. Yeah. And I will say just on that topic, there are some foods even on the food plan that some people can have, like you said, some people can have and some people can't. That certain fruits bother some people, certain foods.
Right.
I will say I have noticed that, I mean, this is over the years, but so I said sugar, flour, and then fat and salt is another category. And for those foods, some people, it's much more about fat and salt than it is sugar and flour. You know, it could be the combo of one, but that fat and salt you know, to me, it's sugar, flour, fat and salt, and volume. Those are the 4 ones that I see are the biggest issues with the compulsion. And sometimes, unfortunately, nuts fall into that fat and salt one. So, you know, again, this is my feeling. If you're asking that, you know, you've struggled with it, most likely, you know, you've struggled with it and you want it to be on the food plan and work for you. And I do too. I mean, listen, the more the merrier. I want more vast choices, more freedom. Absolutely. But if you know your truth, bringing those back in the house already excites you. The thought that you'll make a special stop for those. We already know there's a problem. You know, it's like, I have this saying that I say from Joey from Friends, when your food is like, how you doing? It's just too sexy and sultry. I don't want Joey. I want someone like, oh, good, lunch is here. I don't want, how you doing? So I don't know if you can read the difference between the two, but there is a vast difference between Joey from Friends and just, oh, good, lunch. Because I want it to be good, lunch. I just don't want it to be sultry and sexy. So that's just one of my little things there. So yeah.
I love it. Joey's I love it. All things Friends.
Yeah,
we
love Friends. Oh, big fan.
So yeah, that's great. I love that. So that's a really good way of looking at it. And I do think that, you know, one of the things I appreciate is just the individualization, because I know in some of the 12-step programs, everybody's on the same food plan. But I think it's true that some people are definitely more sugar addicts, and that's really their addiction. And then other people, it seems the fat, salt, and volume, or maybe, you know, some combination. So yeah, and so people like being able to kind of get to the place of knowing, like, if your addiction is sugar and you can eat an ounce of nuts or 2 ounces of nuts as planned, why should, because so-and-so over here can't eat nuts, why should the person who doesn't have a problem have to be abstinent from them? If they're not being called by them.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't have, I always say, if it's not around, hooked around your neck, you know,
Right.
like it's, you know, if you know you can eat them abstinently and sanely,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, like a lady, you know,
Right.
or
Right.
like a gentleman,
Right.
like if you're not embarrassed about the way you're eating,
Mm-hmm.
eating them,
Right. If you're
you know,
shoveling them in, right. That's right.
right,
That's
then
one
you
of
know
your
you have a
indications.
problem,
One of the indications,
right?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. The excitement around it
that's
is big,
great.
is to me, like if you even know you're gonna go on a plan and you're like, let me get the right foods in the house, and your excitement is to get the nuts back in the house. Like, you know, it's like, wait, that shouldn't, you know, that's not where we want this to be. This is like, I want freedom. I don't want to have to worry. I don't want to have trepidations or tremors over what's in my closet, my pantry. I want it to be like I was able to make my hearty and healthy meals and not have to, you
Right.
know, think about it and be obsessed. I mean, this is the ultimate goal, is to not let it take over our lives. So yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
You want peace with it.
Yes.
So I think it's like if anything is causing unrest, or if it's calling, and then you're like, then you're going to feel guilty and sorry
Ah.
and ashamed for, you know, like, then, you know, why do it?
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to end up confused and in a tizzy about the whole thing, it's like, eat what makes you, at the end of the day, peaceful.
Yes.
Because, you know, if it tastes good and you enjoyed it going down, but then you spend the rest of the day in guilt and shame, that wasn't working.
That was not right. That was not the intention of lunch. Lunch should be a second, you know, like, oh, I had it, not I'm spinning over and excited about it, or all the mental gymnastics, I usually say, it comes after, if you know, if you've engaged the addict. So yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So somebody asked, do you think 3 meals a day is enough?
So it kind of depends on, in my opinion, your hours. You know, if you're someone that's getting up very early and going to bed very late, I don't think it's possible. I think it's too many hours between meals. So I usually, you know, if I had to say general, I would say 5 to 6 hours, but 5 is my gauge. So 5 is, that's my comfy zone there, is 5. So if you can see that your hours, if you know, breakfast is somewhere between 8 and 9, lunch is between 12 and 1, dinner is between 5 and 7, depending on that, that can work. Then you could do 3 meals. I find that real life says that doesn't always happen, and I that's why I like that floating snack. But I absolutely have clients that are on 3 meals. I don't want to, I can just say in general, I have been with certain clients that have said, no, my sponsor said I have to do this way, or this program. And I'm not against any program. I'm all for whatever works. I really am. However, when I have had people say to me, I can't do it in 3 meals, but they won't add a snack because it's not supposed to, and they get stuck, and then they end up binging. So, you know, to me, you really have to look at all the things. As weird as this may seem, as a nutritionist, one of my biggest statements is, sometimes it's not about the food. It's really not. It's about the emotions. It's about your day. It's about what's your schedule like? How are you living? You know, what's the real life, your everyday stuff? That to me is just as important as how we structure the plan. So, you know, a short answer would be, depending on your hours, it could work. More often, I'm a 4 meal recommender than a 3. That would be my very short answer to that question. Yeah.
You know, Nikki, we were talking about earlier a little bit about, like, you know, how people, this is a very common thing I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. We've both heard it from many of our clients, sort of this, you know, I call it haphazard eating, where, you know, person's just all of a sudden they get an urge, and they are like normal people,
Mm-hmm.
they get an urge to have a little something to eat, and they get a little something to eat. But, you know, for a person who has an eating disorder, really struggling with food addiction, you know, having like a feeling like, I feel like blah, blah, blah. I feel like having something. So, all of this, I'm thinking of one person I've been working with for a long time, and she has a chronic relapse pattern. And, you know, when we talk about it, I mean, this is a habitual thing. She knows she does this, but she'll just have this inside voice that's, I'm hungry. And she has a great food plan. She knows exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And she, you know, and I think when we've talked about it as a therapist, I think she knows she's hungry for other things, love, connection. She's bored, you know, she maybe needs a rest, but she thinks, I'm hungry. And then she starts entertaining
what she could have.
What she can have. And then this is where the relapses oftentimes will start. It's this, you know, that's where she ends up going and getting something different than what her food plan was, and having something that ends up sending her off into trouble. So what do you think about, you know, that sort of thing when people are kind of struggling with the routine, or being kind of stuck in a routine, or you know, having to be so rigid on their food plans and wanting just the freedom to have what they want and when they want it?
Yeah, I would say, you know, for certainly, like you said, this comes up all the time as far as a question, or, you know, in a session we hear this. And, you know, here's the bottom line. Up until this point, food and mood have been interchangeable. You couldn't even see the difference. It was like, I have a feeling, I'm already in the food. I had a thought, I am in the food. But they're all, it's so intertwined, you can't see what comes first. And really what's supposed to, not supposed to, what the aim is to stop the combo of that. Because when you look at just history of everything, I'm an emotional eater. I eat when I, you know, I joke and say it's the seafood diet. I see food and I want to eat it. It's that mentality of, I see it, I want to have it. I feel like I want this. What am I in the mood for? I feel like, when, you know, it's symbolic for me of having your hand on the refrigerator door and saying, I hope I don't eat, you know, I'm not supposed to eat. You're too close to it. It's that mentality of like, what am I in the mood for? I feel like, if, you know, one of my biggest recommendations is I like the food made the day before, so that rarely are you in a position to have to make a decision about food in the food moment. So come 6 o'clock, it's dinner. I don't want you to start making dinner then. I'm a big 24 hours in advance, have it ready. I don't want you to even have to think about it. So that's one of my, for that exact reason, to, you know, what is something I can do so I don't let my mood affect my food? I do this whole thing, which some of my clients love, where we print out their food plan, and it's a piece of paper laying on my hands here. And I'm like, now this is your food plan. It's a gift. The gift to know what to eat and when to eat is a gift, to be able to follow that every day and not have to wonder, not have to be confused. It's a gift. And we don't want to be a regifter. We want to use that gift. And then I also say, with a food plan comes the safety of this bubble. It's this bubble of like, if I follow this, and I, you know, I've given an indication, I'll use a piece of paper, I'll say like, oh, I just got in a fight with my boss, or my sister just called me, and it's like, yeah, it just says to eat lunch. It doesn't say anything about if you get in a fight, you get to overeat. It doesn't say anything about that. So you follow this food plan because there's this protective bubble, and all your mood and your feelings and your emotions try to hit this. But thank goodness the food plan provides this. When I say food plan above all, I often say that because you want that food plan to be the stability. And so once you get and let the mood affect your food, and this is what I like, make this dramatic, and I throw the paper down, like, this is why food and mood, that's a famoodle. It's not even a word, it's not a thing, and it never works out. So I don't have a clinical way to say famoodle and write that down, but I can tell you that it doesn't work. It is inevitably the end of how the food's going down that day. You know, you're trying to feed your mood with a food, and mood and emotions will never, unfortunately, people have tried. Anyone who's watching, we know we've tried. They don't work. You cannot feed a mood with food. You can go into denial. You can stuff them down, but you're never going to deal with it. Unfortunately, it's waiting for you on the other side. So like I said to you earlier, the crazy thing is we'll talk about the food, and this is definitely important. The food plan is important. And then it's actually not about the food and the other side of it, because it's like, right, mood. And if we let the mood dictate the food, we're in trouble. So it's really like the question to ask, what do I need if I'm craving a food or feel like something, or all of a sudden, like you said, someone sees something in the house and maybe someone else is eating something, like, oh, I want to have that. I know I already have my food, but I want to have that because maybe it looks more exciting, whatever. It ignited the thing in your head. It's like, you know what? What do I need now emotionally? What's going on that just happened that I just switched? Because I have my food waiting for me. What just happened? And if you give yourself the pause to go, yeah, what, oh, right, I'm upset, or I'm angry, and just, that's where we get away from this. Because once your mood and food are all mixed up, you don't know which is different, which came first and which came second. And then you're lost in it again. So yeah, so absolutely, I think, unfortunately, when mood leads food, it doesn't end well. I mean, that's how we got here in the first place. So yes, absolutely. So good question.
Yeah. That was a great answer. And I love the concept of the gift.
Yes.
And, you know, just a wonderful way of looking at it, because it really is a gift to have a plan and just to
you know, follow it.
And I know for myself, as a recovered person myself, one of the things that I know I always fall back on in case I get into confusion because something appears like in my, let's say I have my plan, but something appears in my mind or in my circumstances that looks like an alternative to my, that I might, then I can hear my head start to go a little off, and immediately the voice inside that I know is the voice I need to listen to, which is just stick to your plan. Just stick to your plan. And that's how I operate out of, just stick to your plan. It doesn't matter. I don't need to be entertained by whatever else just appeared.
Right.
There's something so simple about sticking to the plan that just keeps it from uncomplicated and keeps the crazy away.
Yeah, no, so, yeah, you speak the truth. I mean, you can hear it in what you're saying and all that. Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. And I just feel like people, when we think about ourselves around food, when you think about it, our whole lives, we've entertained I'm going to go have that. I'm going to go have that. I'm just going to have one. And we know it doesn't end that way, but we seem to always go back to that old behavior. And in that moment, you have this opportunity, like, what if I didn't? What if I just followed the plan? What if I just ate? Let me just try that first. I often say, just try that first, kind of like a little, almost a dare or a game or an experiment. Like, what if I just ate that dinner first that I have planned and ready? And then if I still want, okay, but instead of engaging it in the moment, what if I put it off and said, okay, you can do that, but let's do this first. Just that mentality to put it off and be like, what if I just followed that? And you see, and then you can know for yourself, like, wow, I almost like totally went into food and I didn't. And then you see you could do it again, or you did it once, and that was you did it. It's not even a story you're hearing, like you did it. And that's what to me is like, that's the power of the freedom. That's what comes. That's the gift of the piece of having a plan and following it through, even in those moments. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I know we're at the point where I know we've gone way over but hopefully people are enjoying this. Has been so good. I just have two quick more questions. Are you open
Sure.
for a little?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two more. One was asking about fasting, which I think we addressed in the dieting piece.
Yeah. You really won't hear me encouraging anyone to do that. It's a setup. I just don't see it as working. So no.
Yeah, no, I don't. I agree with you.
It's a setup.
No, I don't think. I think fasting is a trigger.
Yeah.
It just is a trigger.
It's restricting, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. My take is I call it a validated binge. So I always say I do the letter R. I thought on the board. I do a letter R and then equal signs, and then I cross out the equal signs, because for every restriction, unfortunately, will equal a binge. Restriction does not equal success. It equals a binge. So it's a validated binge, because you think, well, I ate less here. I restricted. I didn't. And then your brain goes, remember when you didn't have that? You get to have more. So we don't have the brains where it's like, oh, it just doesn't work. And again, the extreme things that we're attracted to is really the red flag. Like, wait, I'm attracted, out of all these things, that's the one I'm attracted to. And it's really it's another check mark in the good place of like learning who we are. Like, right, like I don't do well with those foods or those plans, or, starving or restricting or anything. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I want it to work, and it doesn't. And that, you've been through, but sometimes you just have to ask it again, hear it again, and walk it through again, so you really know, like, yeah, I know my truth. So another good question. Yeah,
it is a good question. It's especially nowadays with everyone pushing for intermittent fasting. And what you see is exactly what you're saying, and then there's like all this permission for during your period of time that you can eat, that you can have extra, and it really is very challenging for people who, it's like an invitation to overeat, and it keeps that cycle going. So there's one more question, and that's what about the importance of eating organic versus non-organic?
Okay, so that's a great question. So if you just ask me as a nutritionist, I'm going to say to you, I like the mix of it. I personally do not say I need my clients to eat all organic at all. I'm not against it. I think if you like that, great. It's a little more expensive. It's sometimes a little harder to get, depending where you live and what stores you have around you. But I'm absolutely in favor if you want that. It's just not something I push as the priority. I mean, I am dealing mostly with people that usually would, that talk to us are, struggling with compulsive overeating, eating disorder behaviors, life's unmanageable at this point. So when you rank it on the list, it becomes lower. If you're asking me in the midst of a binge, that doesn't come up. So just as a nutritionist, yes, it's lovely. I don't push it because I really deal with like, I would rather you eat hearty and healthy, and hearty and healthy has nothing to do for me with organic versus not. I mean, that would be the simple answer. So,
Right.
yeah, but I'm not against someone wants to do it. And, I just wouldn't make that my fine line, especially with who I work with. So just doesn't come up enough as and it also has to be organic. I think that's too much pressure. And I was thinking it can get you in a bind of like, well, I couldn't have organic, and then I go off. And one more piece about that. Sometimes it can get stuck in like orthorexia, where it's like so health concerns, and it leads us that way, when that is just not, if it ends up leading you down a bad path and doesn't leave you to freedom from compulsive eating around food, then what have we served? So I would say, no, it's not where I mark it extremely important, and I can leave that there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So now I wonder if that's all the questions that we have. So I was wondering, just as we close, if you would, if you have any last parting words, and then also, would you also give us since some people might not have caught the beginning when we were talking before we started about milestones, and I just want people to know, again, if you wouldn't mind to tell the people who are watching, so that they would know in case they need help or they know someone who needs help. I want to make sure that everyone really understands that there is a place that they can go if they ever really need to go away to be to get the get that what I would call the right jump start to recovery.
Yeah.
Sometimes you really can't get clean when you have all the stresses of life, of family and work and everything, and all the temptations at home. Sometimes you do need that safe environment, and I think mine provides that. So
yes,
last parting words, and then whatever you want to share about milestones.
Gosh, last parting words, such a tough one for me, because I feel like everything we spoke about would be my last parting words. I'm when we talked about what would be our discussion tonight, I was like, that's my entire wheelhouse, everything we discussed. But I would say, maybe even how we started, which was, going back to basics. And even if you're watching this and you, or whether like live or watching this at any point, I would say, if you need the help, to reach out. I would say, if you recognize that you're a compulsive overeater, and it's something that it feels out of control for your, life's unmanageable. Yes, we both want you to get help. I'm obviously, we're both, thank you, in favor of Milestones. We're big fans. Milestones is actually located in, I think when we started this, in Cooper City, Florida, which is very close to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The most important thing to talk about Milestones is that we follow the addiction model, which says that we treat sugar and flour as addictive substances. And if at some point that's been the truth, that you've tried all the diets, you've tried all of that stuff, and it doesn't work, then that's when it's like, wow, maybe it's more than just willpower and things like that. It's much bigger than that. And that's where Milestones can help you figure that out. We even have an assessment process to even help you figure out if that's what your struggle is, and if we can be the ones to help you. We have all levels of care. You can come stay with us. We have therapists, psychiatrists, we have doctors, nutritionists. We customize and individualize that food plan for you. And like I had said before, most importantly, taking out the addictive substances of sugar and flour, so you can live again in peace and freedom. Because when life becomes unmanageable, I mean, it gets to a place where it feels like life is unmanageable. It's not worth living. And I never would want anyone to feel that way. So there's always help. And I would encourage anyone to reach out, or milestonesprogram.org. And we are, we have a Facebook page. We're on the internet. We have a website. You can see, it's in Florida. You'll see a picture of me on there, and you can read all about us. And I would encourage, and we'll probably post this video as well. So we'll have people be able to go link to us. And my thing is freedom from food addiction. I just want freedom again for people. I want there to be peace once again, and not to be so food focused. And whether you've been a foodie your whole life, which is most of my clients, it doesn't have to end that way. It doesn't have to be that way. There is freedom. It's just a matter of knowing where to go and who to talk to and get the job done. And which you pointed out, I do view a food plan as a gift. And it's a gift to know what to eat and when to eat, and to be able to follow that gift and not regift, and follow it all the way through. So yeah, big believer in that. So thank you for having me here, because I think this is a great opportunity for both of us to kind of showcase what we do. But to really get to the bottom line is we don't want anyone to hurt. We don't want anyone to be, you know, stuck in that compulsion where it feels out of control. There are answers. So yeah, there's freedom waiting. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I know. And it's we need people like you who can help with this. It is such an important part of recovery to have somebody as knowledgeable as you, Nikki, to be able to help us with this, with our food.
Yeah.
So to take the confusion away and make it really clear. And you've just done a great job.
Thank you.
I'm glad to have
thank you for
here.
and thank you for, and yeah, for all those that are viewing this, and just thank you for, you know, clicking on us and hearing this and taking the time for you, because really in the end it's for you. You know, it's for anyone that wants the information and wants to move forward and get the solution. So there's freedom again and peace in your world. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nikki, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rhona.
Can't
Thanks
thank you
for having
enough.
me. Yes. Awesome time growth,
Okay.
everyone. So yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, mwah.
Mwah. Right back at you. And thank you, everyone. So thanks for joining in.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Take
Have
care.
a nice one.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.